guys, today I wanted to do a February book favorites for you. The first book that I wanted to share with you was Honey, I Love, and it is by Eloise Greenfield, and it is a group of 16 poems that talk about love and all the other little joys in life. If you're teaching poetry and kind of visualization and being able to see the picture in your head, these are such a great starting point for that. So this is a great little group of poems, and the first one that I love is the one that's the main one, and it's called Honey, I Love. But it just, the way the wording that it uses is beautiful. But great group of poems to teach for visualization. It ties really nice into love and just the joys in life and Valentine's Day. So this is a definite must check out if you don't have this already. Another book that I actually just recently got and added to my collection for February favorite books is one that I probably got maybe a few weeks ago, but I saw it in the bookstore. The cover just attracted me. I thought it was really cute, so I started looking at it, picked it up and read it, and the storyline is really just absolutely precious, and I feel like it ties so perfectly in with kids. The book is called Love Is My Favorite Thing, and it's written by Emma Clark. This story is about a dog, and the dog's name is Plum, and she talks about in the beginning about all the different things that she loves. So she goes through, I'll show you some of the pictures. So she starts talking about all of the different things that she loves in the story, and it keeps going on. Well, they're outside one day at the park, and I can't remember the little girl's name. Emma is her, I guess her owner, tells Plum not to go into the water. Well, Plum goes into the water anyways because she wasn't listening, and she gets in trouble. Well, it's at this point where Plum starts to question whether or not Emma loves her because she's getting in trouble. Well, there's a series of events happen once they get back home. She continues to get in trouble, and she is kind of being punished. She's getting yelled at, etc. So she's questioning again and again, do they really love me? I don't think that they do. So I feel kids can have like a really good connection with this, because sometimes, when parents can get onto them or they get really upset at your kids, or I know I can get really upset at my kids, sometimes they'll say, well, do you really love me? Because you're really angry at me. I don't know if you love me anymore. So it's that kind of reassuring of, okay, yes, sometimes bad things do happen, and yes, you can get in trouble, but we still love you. So it has a very sweet message, and I think kids will relate really well. This is great for making connections with. It's also great for matching the illustrations to the words, talking about what's happening in the text that's being illustrated into the pictures. So relating those two, that's a great standard to fit it in with. Another thing you can do is making predictions, anticipating the ending, whether or not they're going to, if she's going to end up being happy or what could happen at the end. That's something else that kids could do. Either way, this is a great book. I'm really excited to read this one with my kids this year. This is going to be a new first read for me, but the storyline is, my absolute favorite. So this was a must-have for me for February. So the next book that I have is still along the lines of Valentine's Day. And in February, my school goes off of something called investigations. So we have a specific timeline on what we're focusing on in math. Well, during February, we are introducing shapes, and we're going to pull those into 3D shapes. And I saw this one, and again, this is another first read for me, but I absolutely loved it when I saw it because I thought it would fit really well into my math segment and kind of tie all of that together. But it is called The Shape of My Heart, and is by Mark Sparing, and it talks about just the different shapes that you see out in the world. So it talks about the shape of you, and it keeps going on. So it's just a great way for you to have kind of conversations with your kids about what are some of the different shapes that you see on the page. and it's getting them to really be aware of shapes around in their surroundings. I think during February we go on like a shape hunt, and then we start to build almost a map of our school and our community using shapes, which is really, really neat, and they absolutely love it. It's our shape mural is what we call it. So we do this huge shape mural that kind of really connects to them and to their life. So I think this is another great way to introduce that topic to them. So it goes along, talks about some of the different shapes outside, some of the birds, how we say hello, what do you like to eat, so the shapes of foods, the shapes of your feet and of flowers, of cars outside, of your hands. And in the end, it talks about how all of these shapes, it's cute. It says, and this is the shape I love you with. This is the shape of my heart. So it talks about all of the different wonderful things that they love, and it's inside of their heart. Again, just another great way to connect that Valentine's Day, the love and the joys in life, and also tying it into math and bringing in those shapes. I thought it was a really cute book. It's a great, simple read, just something really easy to kind of pull that into math and make those connections for my kids. So I'm excited to read this one. This is going to be a great read for us. Okay, so the next book that I am going to show you is near and dear to my heart. This is by far one of the best books that I have ever read for Valentine's Day, and I read it every Valentine's Day. I have to kind of give all the credit to my internship teacher because she introduced me to this book, and ever since then I fell in love with it, and I have to read it every Valentine's Day. I almost want to tear up every time I think about this book. Okay, so the book is called Somebody Loves You, Mr. Hatch, and it is written by Eileen Spinelli. I hope I'm saying that right. So it's written by Eileen Spinelli. So it's about this man, and his name is Mr. Hatch, and they talk about his life kind of in the beginning, about just his routine that he does, and he's very lonely and he's by himself. So he goes on and it talks about everything that he does throughout the day, just on a typical everyday, day-to-day basis. But he's really alone. He doesn't share anything with anyone. He doesn't really talk to anyone. He does the same thing. Everybody kind of thinks that he's just, shy and doesn't want to talk to anyone. They kind of just let it go. Well, one day the postman comes and gives Mr. Hatch a package. And Mr. Hatch opens the package, and it's this huge box of chocolates. Again, tying it back into Valentine's Day. So this entire time, he's looking at this box of chocolates, and on it, it says that it's from, I think it says Secret Admirer. I can't remember exactly what wording it says. He doesn't know who it could be. Well, his entire demeanor starts to change after he gets this package, and he becomes more friendly. He starts smiling. He starts wearing different things. He starts helping other people and sharing things. And people start to notice him. I get chills every time I talk about this book. And people start to notice him at that point. And in the very end, the postman comes. And it's at this point where everybody kind of is really starting to love Mr. Hatch. And the postman comes and he tells Mr. Hatch, I'm so sorry that I have to do this, but I accidentally delivered the package to you, but it wasn't for you. How heartbreaking, right? So he has to give the package back, and then all of a sudden Mr. Hatch goes back to his old ways because he realized that, oh, nobody did give me anything. I'm probably not that special anyways. So he goes back and reverts back to his normal self, and now everybody's like, what's happening? What's wrong with Mr. Hatch? Well, in the end, they all get together and they throw him this really big surprise party because they do love him, and somebody does love Mr. Hatch. I have goosebumps. And somebody does love Mr. Hatch, and it's just the most beautiful, wonderful story I think I have ever read for Valentine's Day. You could, I mean, there's so much you could do with this. You can compare and contrast how Mr. Hatch was before he got the gift to after he got the gift, talking about his characteristics that he had. You can anticipate endings. You can predict anything within the story about what's going to happen. You can have them make predictions about who they think it is in the story. So it's a wonderful, wonderful read. If you have not read this book, please go out and at least get it from your library to read it one time. It is a beautiful and loving story. I cannot recommend this book enough. This is by far one of my favorites. So past Valentine's Day and that time of love comes President's Day. And in kindergarten, we teach George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and then we will throw in the U.S. symbols in there as well. But that's pretty much all we touch on. Now, there are some really great resources out there for U.S. symbols and George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. Some really great nonfiction books out there as well. But there is one in particular that I wanted to share with you guys that I am extremely excited about. If you haven't heard about this series, it's called the I Am series. And this book is called I Am Abraham Lincoln. And it is by Brad Meltzer. I hope I'm saying that right. Sorry if I'm not. And it's illustrated by Christopher. I'm not even going to attempt it. I'm just going to put it here somewhere. I'm sorry. I can't say it. So, either way, the way that they present Abraham Lincoln in this book is just extremely inviting and easy to follow along for kids. I feel like because of the very comic book effect of it, kids are really interested and intrigued about what's happening in the story. And then it's also written in the point of view of Abraham Lincoln. So it's as if Abraham Lincoln is just sitting there telling them about his life and what's happening. So in the story, it starts off about Abraham Lincoln, and it's signed, and it talks about Abraham Lincoln as a child and some of the things that he went through, some of the struggles that he went through, just the things that I guess were life-changing for him and that kind of made him into the person that he is. It really kind of shows who Abraham Lincoln is as far as his characteristics and his personality. So it walks through, does that, and it's so cute that the entire time you're walking through this book, Abraham Lincoln is always seen in the way that you would picture Abraham Lincoln, with his big black tall hat, with his black suit. He's like that throughout the entire story. So even from a young kid to being an older man, he looks the exact same. So it goes through, and then in the end it starts talking about some of the struggles that Abraham Lincoln had, but it's all presented in such an interesting and, fun and inviting way that I think it just really captures kids' attention. So this is by far one of my favorite series that I've seen out there that talks about just in general famous people, and it really gives kids great information on them. Makes it fun, it makes history interesting for them. And so I feel like this book is just a great way for you to be able to make history fun and interesting, and kids will really enjoy that. So definitely check out his series if you haven't already. Okay, so I might be jumping just a little bit early in the game on this one, but I actually love this book, and I had to go through and research more about it. And it was funny because in the very back it actually has this, but when I first got it, I didn't look in the back of the book. And I didn't know that George Washington had lost so many of his teeth. Don't know why I didn't do that. Probably wasn't because I wasn't a very good student when I was in high school. So, because it's also around the time of dental health, and we usually have a dentist come in and talk about dental health, and I figured this would be a really cool book to throw in there just because, I don't know, it's fun. So this book is called George Washington's Teeth. A book all about his teeth. So this book is written by Deborah Chandra and Madeline Komarov. I can't say it. And Madeline something. I don't know. Sorry guys, I can't do it. So the book is called George Washington's Teeth. And it's a story literally about how he lost all of his teeth. It talks little bits and pieces here and there about him going off to war and becoming president. It talks about a little bit of the insecurities that he feels about losing his teeth, what people's reactions will be when he's losing all his teeth. It's just a very interesting way, and it's something that I think that is really neat that I didn't even know about. So I feel like connecting this with dental health will be fun. I read it last year, and my kids really, really loved it. The illustrations are just watercolor. They're very, not very detailed, but they're still really, really good. For this book, I think I would really go through asking questions about some of those key details that are happening in the story, and anticipating what would be happening in the end. So there's still a lot of standards that you can pull into this text as well. But it is a great story overall, and if you didn't know, he did lose all of his teeth. And I didn't know that, and he wore dentures for quite some time. So it's cool here because it also gives you a nice little timeline of events, of things that were happening, and letters that were sent to dentists about what was happening as he was losing his teeth. So something else that I think is just a really cool, interesting way to just make those connections and tie everything all in together. I feel like when you really tie things together for kids, especially in those younger ages, it just starts clicking so much more for them. And by the way, I did not mention that all the books that you see me using right now, these books, I'm doing them over a span of 4 to 5 days. I don't typically do one book a day and I'm done. I like to really dig deep, pull information out, and introduce different standards and how I explicitly teach those standards, if that makes sense. So I will go through and really give that support in the beginning, model how I'm understanding things, how I'm thinking, and then slowly have my kids releasing that responsibility, giving them groups and putting them in pairs afterwards, then actually having them go off and doing it independently. But I'm doing it all within one text. I feel like if I try to change up books too often with them, they're not really going to grasp that concept because they're so busy trying to remember the story and remember what's happening. So really remember that whenever you're trying to focus on a standard and you're trying to teach something very specific, try to keep that same exact book and teach it over multiple days and really scaffold that information. So it could be that I only read 3 or 4 pages that very first day, but I'm very explicit on how I am telling my kids about what's going on in my head and how I'm thinking, and I'm relating it back to that standard the entire time, if that makes sense. Y'all, I feel like I can ramble on this forever, so sorry. I can go on and on about standards and making sure it all connects. Sorry. Okay, last book that I am going to show you, I promise. And this is just, I think, an old-time favorite book. And it's the Berenstain Bears Visit to the Dentist. And it has stickers inside, which is always awesome. This one still has my stickers. I didn't take my stickers out. But this book is really great. You can talk about the series. Retelling story is wonderful for this type of book. But you're also going through and asking and answering those questions about key details about what's happening. So the big standard that I would do with this book is there's a standard that talks about comparing the events and the characters within similarly told stories. So remember my George Washington that had no teeth? You pull that back out. So you remember my George Washington? This is what I would pair it with. Because in this book, Sister is losing a tooth. So it's a great way to tie what's happening. They're both a little bit similar, but there's still a lot of differences. So you can do some really great comparing between the two stories and the events that are happening. So in this book, Sister has her first loose tooth, and Mom is going to take them to the dentist. Yay! So when she gets to the dentist, it's Brother's turn first. And Brother gets into the dentist chair, and the dentist shows, let me get to that part. Brother gets into the dentist chair. The dentist shows all the different things, and she's kind of looking around, and she's like, wow, look at all this stuff. And she's very nervous the entire time, which I think is a huge connection again for kids, because a lot of kids are extremely nervous about going to the dentist. So she sees all of these tools and she starts to get more nervous. Well, she's trying to wiggle her tooth out the entire time, because she's like, if I go ahead and get it out, then he can't do anything to me. Well, she can't get it out. Brother ends up having to get a cavity filled, and it talks about all the things that they're doing as they're filling the cavity. Well, not all of it. They leave out a couple of things. So after Brother gets out, he's as good as new, he's happy, and it's Sister's turn. So she gets in, she's nervous, but the dentist pulls out her tooth. And in the very end, the tooth fairy leaves her a very shiny and pretty dime. So it's just a favorite among so many kids. I really like how the story is just so relatable to children. They could really make those connections. And at the same time, I can meet another standard by comparing the events and the characters within these two stories. So Bernstein Bears, another favorite during the dental health time. So definitely check this one out if you have not. Okay guys, so I felt like I rambled on forever, and I am really sorry about that. But I hope you enjoyed kind of getting a peek into some of the books that I like to use in my classroom for the month of February. If you have any questions, please leave them down below, and I will try my very best to answer them. I will leave a link down below to all of the books that I just showed you in this video. So if you want to check any of those titles out, just follow the little arrows down below to go and click on those, and it'll take you right to where you can purchase those. So I would love to know one book that you teach with in your classroom. So what is your absolute favorite book to use in the month of February? For me, out of all of them, it's gonna have to be Somebody Loves You, Mr. Hatch. I always get chills when I read that book. So I would love to know your absolute favorite. Please leave me a comment down below. And if you really enjoyed this video and you thought it was helpful, give me a thumbs up so that I know whether or not I should keep doing them. I really appreciate all you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye! Hey guys! Today I wanted to do a review on my channel, and I know that this is something really different and I haven't done anything like this before, but I